Dr. Václav Klaus, the President of the Czech Republic, gave a speech at the United Nations on September 24th of 2007. His main recommendation was that the UN set up a body that's parallel to the IPCC, which is their present climate science advisory body, to independently examine the evidence and prepare an independent report, and that this body be financed by the United Nations. Well, we have anticipated Dr. Klaus's recommendation, and we set up such a body 3 years ago, and we started intensively to prepare a counter report to the IPCC this last spring. And this report will be released in November of 2007 in time for the IPCC synthesis report. This organization we call the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change, which spells NIPCC, or NIPIC, if you like. And it is produced by a group of independent scientists who are not government servants, who do not draw support from industry or from government, who are mostly academics. Some are retired. In any case, they're not dependent on anyone or anybody that might influence their opinions. So now we have two reports. We have the IPCC report, and we have the report of NIPIC. And they try to look at the same information, the same data, and yet they arrive at completely different conclusions. How is this possible? Well, the IPCC has looked at the data and models, climate models, and has concluded that the current warming that's taking place and being measured by thermometers is due to the human impact of the release of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuels. And they even claim that they are 90 to 99% sure of this. I wonder. The evidence that they cite is very, very scant and not at all convincing. I will cite some of the evidence that they put forward, but let me say that we reach the opposite conclusion. We conclude that the warming is mostly of natural origin, that the human contribution is insignificant, and that the effect of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases cannot be detected in the climate record. We're not arguing that CO2, carbon dioxide, is not a greenhouse gas. It is. It should produce some warming. All we're saying is it is so small that we don't see it. It's not significant. How does the IPCC support their claim? They put forward evidence that's circumstantial. They say, for example, and of course others will echo what they say, glaciers are melting, polar bears are disappearing. I don't know about polar bears. Glaciers are melting. Yes, of course they're melting. Why? Well, because it's warming. It doesn't tell you what the cause is. You see, there's an error of logic here. Any kind of warming, whether it's natural or man-made, will melt ice. So the fact that glaciers are melting, and indeed if they are, not every glacier is melting, but let's just say they are, doesn't tell you what the cause is. Another piece of support that they give is that the climate is warming and carbon dioxide is increasing in the atmosphere. That's true. All this shows that there's a correlation. Correlation is not proof. Correlation doesn't tell you the cause. And in fact, for much of the 20th century, the climate was cooling while carbon dioxide levels were increasing. So the correlation doesn't hold. And if you look at the record in some detail, you'll find that since 1998, almost a decade ago, there has been no additional warming in spite of the fact that carbon dioxide is increasing. So the correlation is certainly not working. In any case, it wouldn't be proof. There's a final appeal that they have to climate models. They say they can reproduce the temperature record of the 20th century by climate models that incorporate not only natural forcings like the sun and volcanoes, but also human forcing like greenhouse gases and aerosols, those particles that reflect the sunlight. Well, if you look at their effort in some detail, you'll find that it is basically an exercise in curve fitting. There are enough adjustable parameters in all of these factors so you can fit any curve at all. It doesn't work. Okay, what then is a way of telling natural from man-made warming? It turns out that the best way, the only way perhaps, and we all agree on that, by the way. There's no scientific difference about the method. The method is one of looking at so-called fingerprints of climate change, fingerprints of warming. That is the pattern of warming. And I'd like to show you a slide taken from the IPCC report, which shows the fingerprints produced by different methods of warming. Could we go to the first slide, please? Could we go to the first slide, please? The first slide. Thank you. What we see here are the effects of different climate forcings on the pattern of warming. Just to orient you on this, on the horizontal scale, you see the latitude. In the center, you see the equator. On the left is the North Pole, on the right is the South Pole. And you see altitude. So basically, we're plotting the temperature trend, the rate of warming, versus latitude and altitude. The first slide on the upper left shows the effect of a change in solar radiation. Let's stick with this, please. Go back. The second one shows the effect of aerosols. The third shows the effect of greenhouse gases. The fourth is something else. The fifth is another factor. These are all different forcing mechanisms. What is characteristic here is that the forcing by greenhouse gases, which is the second slide on the left, second graph on the left, the middle one, is characteristic. It has a characteristic fingerprint. It shows that the rate of warming increases as you go from the surface, which is the horizontal line at the bottom, up to an altitude of about 10 kilometers. And there the rate of warming is 3 times as much as it is at the surface. The final one at the bottom right hand shows the superposition of all of the forcings, the natural forcings and the man-made forcings. And you see that the effect of the greenhouse gases is very prominent. So if indeed greenhouse gases are producing climate effects, you would expect to see in the climate record something like the last graph, the one at the bottom on the right-hand side.